All right, everyone. Thank you for being here. This is our STIC Artificial Intelligence AI Community of Practice. And today we're going to cover a few things in our time here together. And I do encourage you to use the chat if you have questions. And of course, we're recording this as well. So a few just brief protocols for this community of practice. We really want to try to be inclusive. We have both faculty and staff in the room, and try to use references that would be relevant for everyone. We want to recognize that AI can create a emotion, spark, excitement, sometimes resistance or concern. So just be respectful of the fact that this topic can be emotive. And we really want to encourage you to be curious about AI, not to judge it or be critical of it. It's a tool that we're going to be using, and we just want to be respectful of that and be curious about it. And then also to be mindful of the language that we invite everyone here, and try to be careful of any jargon that you might use if you are more knowledgeable about AI than those others in the room. And at all times, please, by all means, ask any kind of clarifying questions, because that's what we're here to do. So today we're going to review what the results were from the August Professional Day workshop that David and Laura and I ran. We're going to go over the results from all the pieces of paper, and I'll describe that in a minute, that were generated. We're going to discuss a possible framework for artificial intelligence here on campus, and then gather input from you here today. So I'm not sure, Francie, if you were in the room. I know Laura wasn't because she wasn't, Laura Ross wasn't because she wasn't here yet. But what we did is to do a design thinking format in the workshop. We were a little overwhelmed, Laura Ross, because we had over 85 people in the room. We were not expecting quite that many. But what we did was, around the room, we put up papers, large papers with 4 key questions, and then asked the audience to rotate around and to bring up and talk about collaboratively their ideas based on those questions. And the questions that were asked were: how to use AI in your program or your class or your office, depending on what you are in the room, what kind of stakeholder you are, how you innovate with AI, how you teach and or use AI in your office or department. And then we talked about protocols and guidelines with AI. So the first question about AIs in the programs or in the offices, the audience were really looking at how things were currently being used. And there was a lot of rubric creation, language around AI. It seemed to be, from what we were able to gather, somewhat limited in experiencing, for students particularly, to revise and outline. Also with staff, they're using it to revise or outline documents, forms, communications, those types of things. And some of the challenges were that plagiarism was a large, overarching concern, especially around faculty. The loss of critical thinking and the over-reliance on AI. And just out from the notes, it was particularly in the areas of nursing, physics, and mathematics. And also AI as a hallucination, which those who are not familiar, is when AI creates responses to prompts that may or may not be accurate. So these were kinds of the overarching observations from the audience. Then we were looking at successes, like what were your successes within your programs or your offices? And some people said that there was improved accessibility. And Francie, you might have heard some of that in your accessibility community of practice. Support for students with disabilities. AI allows another way to present information, and faculty or staff can take their content and create it so that other students with disabilities may or may not, in a better manner, interact with that content. Again, rubric creation, that came up a lot, and assignment generation. Some of the concerns were that balance of giving students independence, but keeping them back from not overusing it, and then distinguishing supportive versus avoidant AI use. So it's a balance. It's always a balancing act, is what the audience was generating. In the second question, innovating with AI, the audience said that they were using this specifically for advisors, virtual co-instructors, immersive simulations, dynamic assessments. An interactive encyclopedia was one of the items that was written on the papers. Case study generation. This was, I found this over several different papers and different entries on those papers. And then as study guides or to improve an already existing rubric. The practical uses were the feedback on drafts, and that wasn't specific whether it was a draft of a student or a draft of a faculty staff. Fact checking, I think that was prevalent for everyone. Aiding email writing, repurposing materials, such as taking existing slides and creating podcasts, which was one of the practical ways that people are innovating currently with AI on our campus. And then potential pilots were the treatment plans via AI prompts. They asked for scaffolding basic skills and co-creation of resources. The scaffolding of basic skills, again, I'm not sure if that was asking of faculty and staff asking for those skills, or of faculty and staff introducing those basic skills to students and then scaffolding off of those skills and growing those skills. Either way, I think it's a good thing. We do have obviously a variety of skill levels with AI across our campus because people have been using it since early 2023 on campus, both in the student and the faculty staff arenas. So teaching with AI, and again, the majority of people in the room were faculty that I remember, but this could be teaching and or working with students and using AI. Again, the case studies came up, scenario-based assessments. AI is very good at generating those kinds of things, organizing presentations, simplifying complex concepts, and using AI to assist with outlines. And it could be used for building upon those outlines into the scaffolding or creating drafts and then iterating drafts. Someone said that students need support in prompting, that documenting AI use, and not 100% sure what that meant, but we do have a lot of resources that I've been gathering, and our library also has resources. And there was also an understanding that manual processes before AI assistance. And this was specific entry. It was AlphaFold, which for those who don't know, and I didn't know, AlphaFold is a server web-based service that can generate highly accurate biomolecular structures and predictions. So apparently someone maybe had some kind of encounter with this particular web server and some kind of AI use. Unclear about that, but I could probably dig into that and find that out. And the audience has also observed that in assessments, that proving that there's human authorship, having in-person checks, Turnitin and AI checkers, and that there's a gray area around grading with AI. And I think that is from anecdotal conversations I've had with faculty. Some of them do use AI to create a baseline feedback, particularly in an online course when they're giving feedback, but then they wrap that base feedback around with specific feedback. If I was, giving notes to David or Francie in the back end of Blackboard, that I could wrap around and augment that AI generated base content and language. So there's also ethical focus, clarifying the AI limits, and this would be both in a user and limit, and also the limit of the environmental impact that AI has in its use. Ensuring that professors' role isn't diminished. This was an overarching question that I saw on many of the papers as well. And I think that we need to be very, very careful that we are augmenting the role of the professor or the faculty, and that role isn't diminished. It can only be more fully supported with AI. Under the protocols and guidelines area, some of the concerns were, again, the plagiarism, the inaccuracy of AI responses, that's the hallucination, the equity of access, that could be both positive and negative, the equity of a paid version of AI versus a free version of AI, whether a student can even access any kind of AI. There's also fact-checking and negative classroom dynamics, where faculty saw inconsistencies. And I might check in on that to find out a little bit more of what that meant and blossom that out a bit. In principles, AI is a support. It's not a replacement. It should verify resources, and it should encourage critical thinking. I think that's a real golden area right there under the principles, and something that we should continue to explore. Communications, there are expectations through the syllabi that faculty are asked and highly recommended that they communicate whatever AI use they're going to do through their syllabi, and that they give explanations to their students through the syllabi and in written and oral communication. And then also in the grading policies, some faculty get very specific of whether an assignment is AI graded or not. But again, we always recommend that you communicate whatever it is you're doing. And then there's ongoing tensions. There's adversarial versus supportive faculty responses, and then defining the accessible versus inaccessible use. And I think that will probably be a tension that occurs as long as we're using this particular tool. And again, I think that goes back to some of that emotive dynamics around AI. So those were some of those concerns. So any questions so far? Because I went over that fairly quickly, tried to dive deeper. If you were in the room and remember anything that you might want to expand upon, this might be the time.
Hi, Mary. I do have a question. Just I'm not educated enough in the current status with how students use this on campus. And is there a program that faculty utilize? Because I've heard maybe there is, when a student is writing a paper or doing anything and handing it in. What are the platforms faculty are currently using to ensure that it's not plagiarism, etc., with AI? And yeah, so that's my question. Sorry.
And that's, I think, part
I
of the
don't know. So it's like hard to even formulate that question.
right. And I think that's part of the concern that's raised. And Francie, since you're here, if you want to chime in as well, I don't know if you use AI in your classroom. I can only speak to the anecdotal, that faculty have told me. And it can be, it runs a spectrum. It can be, I have them do it on certain assignments, and they do it for the outline, they do it for the first draft, they do it for the second draft, and then the last draft. And then on other assignments, the student has to do everything, and AI isn't used at all. the variety of tools, that could be ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, any of the tools that the students can get access to. But
And
Francie,
then, oh, sorry. So then, thank you, Mary. I appreciate that. Then the question really narrows down to how do faculty ensure that a student is not utilizing AI in an appropriate way?
Francie, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. I think it's the general um, the general advice I've got on this through looking around is that their AI detectors are generally pretty biased and that they cannot be depended upon. Um, at at the point that I was doing my research, AI is really kind of developing very quickly. I I try to not have students use AI in my class because my I really kind of broke down what I want my students to learn, and it's creative thinking, problem solving, using their own brains, understanding where their thoughts and impressions about the world come from. And I haven't found a way for AI to really assist them in gaining those learning goals yet. So, but I, have my little checklist of things um, that people always say, like, I'm sorry, I'm going on and on, Mary. Is this okay?
No.
Oh, go.
Okay. People always say, well, you'll know AI when you hear it. And yeah, you do. But I don't feel like that's specific enough to actually accuse somebody of, you know? So I have like a checklist that actually, if you ask AI, what are the qualities of AI generated language, that it gives you a really clear and concise list. And it's not that I'm against AI. If there's a way that it becomes helpful in my classes, then I'm cool with it. But right now I'm really into figuring out how to not use it in my classes.
And I have 2 points to add to that. Back to what Laura said. First, I've heard that faculty will, particularly in English, they'll have a student write in their own voice, and they do it in class, or they do a draft. And then they tell the students, now I want you to use AI and, draft something. So they have like a baseline to compare. Secondly, Francie, I want to ask, do we know AI if we see it? Because when David came in, he said, how do you know that I'm not an avatar that AI has created? And Laura Hurley and I were in the room, and we said, well, we can see the wrinkles on your shirt. We can see the lighting in the background, that kind of thing. If you know it when you see it, do you know AI when you see it? Sometimes you do, and sometimes it's really hard.
No, I don't think I mean, you can't tell for certain, but there's like different factors. If you see like submission of a large amount of work in a short period of time, overly complex sentence construction, lack of personal experience, untraceable citations, those things are all on my list.
Right.
I'm taking a break from accusing students of AI or addressing it openly in favor of watching and trying to make persuasive videos that it will be easier to do your work than to um, have AI write it for you.
Do we have a program at this institution that funnels this for faculty?
Talk more about what that
So for
program.
example, I have a friend that teaches at BayPal, or used to, and she would have to put all of her students' work, papers, etc., through this program, and then it would tell her. Do we have such a mechanism for
Yes.
faculty? Okay,
We have Safe Assign,
thank you.
and other campuses use Turnitin. But
The-
honestly, I don't know how many faculty use that. And for Francie, unless it's a writing, she's probably seeing a student in the studio create something, unless it's an online class.
No, I teach art history. I teach
Okay.
3 art history courses a semester, so it's all writing in those. And Safe Assign, to my knowledge, does not detect AI. It does detect plagiarism, and there are issues with it. Most of us use it on every assignment that we submit, and it's not like foolproof. And the AI detectors like Turnitin, I have heard that they are not dependable. And it's not that I'm against them. They might have become more dependable in the last few months, but I've heard that there's a lot of bias and in them. So that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Laura, Laura Ross, anything in particular with early college? Because I don't know what the high school students use.
Yeah, I definitely I'm just enjoying kind of listening in on the conversation. I think that I in my experience at Girls Inc., we worked with AI in a really limited capacity with the students, but I think a lot of our work was focused on trying to find ways to use it as a tool that would be in some way useful in supporting them with their academics. I do think there are a lot of really exciting applications for AI in terms of particularly career exploration. I think that like that's a tool I've used for myself that again, I found it to be really useful and accessible. But of course, I also think that there's the issue that you all have spoken about over-reliance on AI, I think is an enormous problem and one it's tricky to balance and to figure out how to appropriately convey that to students. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot of open questions and I'm enjoying the conversation and kind of trying to figure out ways that I think it would be really interesting to think about ways that we might be able to actually fold that into some parts of the program.
Well, good. That's what we're hoping to do here in this community of practice. So,
And Mary, I just wanted to let everybody know, in dealing with the federal government on various levels for my department, they're really beginning to open up with the management, the life cycle of what I do in my department and ensuring that grant compliance has the ability to utilize AI to ensure that the use of funds are being spent appropriately, et cetera. So it's interesting. It was so student, faculty focused, and now it's really gone into other areas of the institution, an educational institution.
and that kind of brings me to not just this fall framework and ideas, but AI right now is only going to get better. And it's going to be really interesting to see how everything unfolds. But in the chat, I'm going to put a link to a document that actually comes from Charter Oak State College. They created an AI advisory group report that I thought was a pretty good framework that might be something that we could use to inspire us to bring something together, and that this could be somewhat of a working group. But again, I am completely wide open to whatever folks want to do. But one thing I have done thus far is created a statement, a pretty general statement, pretty benign, and put it on the professional development AI page where I have some links to other materials. And I will have that for you in the materials that I share with you after we're done here. But just kind of a statement to start, so we have some kind of a goal. And then after that, to have some guiding principles that this kind of bubbled up from the results of the workshop in August, that AI really is a tool, it's not a solution, that critical thinking, problem solving, as Francie said, decision making is really the first thing that we need to teach students. Transparency, now this could be pretty broad, but transparency in disclosure of how we're using the tools, faculty indicating that AI shapes assignments or instructional design, or students acknowledging when they've used AI in a deliverable in a classroom. Accessibility, that AI should be used to leverage and expand the access for our learners and those with any kind of disabilities or diverse language needs. So we can ensure that everyone's included in the conversation and in the learning. And then equity, that we continue to commit to ensure that AI tools are not widening gaps in access and digital literacy, but bringing people together in resources, training, and support, so that we're providing all our members of our campus with the responsible literacy, the tools that we can, the technology, and the knowledge of how to do it. In my mind, we need to have our students ready to go out in the world to, transform things, and they need some skills, I think. And then have a commitment to AI, that we're really educating our students on the ethical use of the tools, that we're preparing the students to be both thoughtful in academic and professional settings, that we're promoting those promising practices. We share those practices with each other, and we reinforce that ethical and effective application. That we keep adopting and evolving the technologies. Things are moving very quickly and rapidly in the AI world, and to stay on top of it is going to take some work. And then centering our mission around the affordability and the high quality education with the benefits of AI for our students, and give them, a high standard of skills before they leave STIC. So the structure that comes out of that document is really framing and then training and resources and protocols and procedures, which goes along quite nicely with what was coming out of the questions. But again, these are just ideas. Under the deliverables for framing, we could talk about developing an AI framework and the AI literacy framework for faculty, staff, and students with recommendations. Right now, it's very kind of siloed, I think. The library has some resources. I have some resources. Other faculty and staff have resources that they just use as their own skills and tools. And that we kind of cross-train faculty, staff, and students using those resources and training materials, and that the protocols and procedures really continue to guarantee that fair use of generative AI, that there are some guidelines, protocols for people. Faculty and staff have different uses of AI, and faculty are always encouraged to be very transparent in their use of AI and communicate that. And that we have vendor assessment tools, which our IT department does do. If there's a new software that comes on, that has a process that it has to go through for approval. And then, of course, there's always the budgetary side of any kind of software or technology tool. And then, of course, the data privacy and protections and security, which is a continual thing that we work on. So I wanted to stop there and just ask, we have a few minutes left. I have nothing more to offer here as far as anything other than our next AI Communities of Practice, which will be October 28th and November 18th, same time, 12:15 to 1:15. But as far as these frameworks, are there any thoughts, questions, ideas from those of you here? Do you think that this might be a way to proceed forward with this group, or do you have a different idea or structure?
Mary, it would be interesting because I'm the staff side of the house, not necessarily faculty, excuse me. So it would be interesting to hear how staff, non-academic side, utilize AI currently. I know how I utilize it, the little bit that I do in trying to get into it. But it'd be interesting to hear from colleagues across campus how they're utilizing it, if they are.
So maybe a survey of some sort?
Yeah. And maybe an anonymous survey or so, I don't know how to distinguish that if it makes people nervous, thinking they're gonna get in trouble or.
Yeah, I would, if I were gonna do something like that, I would do an anonymous survey.
Okay.
Francie, Laura, Ross, any ideas? I like the idea of a survey. I would like to kind of move forward with some of the framework and
Yep.
basing it loosely on the Charter Oak, because I think it's a solid framework. Protocols and procedures, if there's going to be anything more concrete than what we currently have, that would have to go through the AUC, the All Units Congress. And I know or believe they've been working on something. But from what I've heard from colleagues across the state and the nation, in the workshops that I've been in, many institutions don't really have they have a guideline or a protocol. They don't have I'm trying to, I'm at loss for words here of the terminology. But they have it be more of a guideline depending on what your stakeholder is on campus, whether you're a faculty, a staff, or a student. And they communicate those guidelines. Thoughts?
I'm in agreement, Mary, with moving forward with those.
Those who are here because you showed up, you do have some say here.
And I'm always a big believer, if people are going to agree to moving forward, then it should be the ownership of all of us, not just you, Mary, per se. I mean, you're the guider, but you're not necessarily have to be the doer of it all.
Yeah, understandable. And I would love to have perhaps one of these workshops, these community of practice to be an actual working time as a possibility as well. So we have something that comes out of this. Some ideas that I've been tossing around, and Francie, you might have been at one of the workshops where Lance Eaton came on campus in 2024. And he did some work in workshops with us, both virtually and in person. I'm considering bringing him or someone like him to a January professional development. None of that is set in stone yet, because I just do the proposals. I don't make the final decisions on keynotes or themes for professional day. But I think that might be a lovely way to take some of what we've done here, have an outside person help guide us through some framing of AI and like what to do next. I find it a bit challenging to try to be there for every level of stakeholder and be it faculty or staff, and being able to train them on every little bit of what needs to be done. But maybe there can be another mechanism where they can learn how to do prompts, or they can, decide if they want to do rubrics or assignments or case studies or documents or forms or whatever it is that folks are using. And therein, Laura, is where the survey might help us guide us. But again, I would probably draft a survey and then ask the people in this community practice thus far to have a look at it and then send it out. Any other thoughts? David, anything you want to add?
Looking good so far. Thanks for doing this, Mary.
Okay. All right, well then, there's no other parting thoughts, I am going to stop the recording. And
Thank you.
um, come on. I'm going to try to